Alright, let's head on into floor 3. So floor 3 does have a considerably higher difficulty associated with it. So let's see how we can get through it. So in phase 1, you will optimally want to finish in one turn, and the goddess team does make this possible. If you go past one phase, then the gauge on the left here will start increasing, and then that will just increase the runtime dramatically. So let's build up Mile and Freya's passive and Mile's Holy Relic. So here, so any arrangement of these cards will one turn the beast. That's what's good about it. So on to phase 2. So this phase is where the run can get long, because here he has 1, 2, 3, 4 damage taken decreased debuffs and the gauge on the left. For every one of these stances that you remove, he will gain 15% on his gauge, but you have to remove them, because once you remove them, you start getting little perks that will allow you to reduce the gauge by up to 5% when you use specific cards. So in this first turn, you will need to use a stance removal in order to allow you to use your buff cards. So what I like to do is just start rushing Liz ult in this turn. So here we see our first perk. So this one is the gauge is depleted when the enemy is using stance skills. We're not using stance skills on this team, so that one's not really helping us. So I'm gonna start rushing Miles ult as well. So in this phase, you'll really see that you don't want to really bring Green Freya, because Green Freya does have 2 single target cards, and so that means that every time she attacks, she would be increasing the gauge by 15%. So if your hand starts getting full up of Green Freya's cards, then you're really gonna be stuck on this phase indefinitely, because you'll just keep increasing the gauge and not being able to bring it down. So here he puts on a stance. I'm going to remove it using Miles Ultimate. And also Miles Ultimate is good here because it does give you a damage decrease, because his ult will extort the team. So you should save either Liz's attack card or a buff card to remove it in this turn, the next turn. So when we removed another stance, we have another perk up here on the left. This one is for ultimates. So once you use ultimates, the gauge will decrease by 5%. And this is why Liz is good for this, because her new passive allows it so that once you use her ultimate and a card, she will get back her ultimate the same turn. So cycling this out during this phase is going to allow you to really get the gauge down. Let's throw out Freya's ultimate and Margaret's ultimate. So he does put up another stance. So we're gonna remove it. Look, our hand is full of stance removals, which is not the best situation. So we're gonna try our best to not use those. And we can get Margaret's ult next turn. Another perk here is when you use recovery cards. That's the green card. We're not using that on this team, so this perk is not going to help us. So we should be able to finish this next turn. So let's throw out Margaret's ultimate. That should bring down the gauge somewhat. This blue card. And Miles ult, just in case. Okay, so there we're able to defeat phase 2. Some other perks that you can get during that phase is a buff card one, where if you use a buff card it will remove the gauge down by 5% as well. I didn't get it during this run, but it's all up to RNG as to which ones you get first. So for this phase, dependent on how much you decrease his HP by in each phase will determine how much the gauge goes down. So in phase 2, in floor 2, it was by 50%, you get him down to 30, you goes down by 33%. For this phase, you have to get him down to 20% for the phase, for the gauge to decrease by 25%. But for each turn, you must get him below 5%. If you don't get him below 5% of his HP, it will increase his gauge. So I didn't really come to this phase with a lot of DPS cards, which is not good. You really want to have your DPS cards for this phase. So I'm banking on the high stats that we have to help us here. Let's throw out these cards. But as long as I get him below the 5% here, so the gauge will not increase. So the shortest amount of time you can do this phase will be in 4 turns. But I'm gonna take more than 4 turns because I didn't have any DPS cards coming into this phase due to the card draw from phase 2. Okay, we can So we are able to bring him all the way down in this phase. So we're gonna decrease the gauge by 25%. And now we have a couple ults, so we can now more effectively bring the gauges all the way down. So I'm gonna throw out Freya's ult card. And you notice he fully heals every turn. And he will put up a stance next turn, so I'm going to save that stance removal card. Let's do this. Yeah, Freya's ult just one turns this phase. So his ult will apply a bunch of burns to your team, and this can really start making him do a lot of damage, but the high stats of this phase allow you to survive. So first thing you're going to do is cleanse those debuffs. Use Miles' ultimate, which should finish the health bar. And we can well, let's remove the stance first. Then use Miles' ult. So we're going to be able to completely decrease the gauge during this turn. And we don't need... Let's rush Freya's ult for the last turn. Oops. So if you do this phase in 4 turns, then it will be much simpler. You won't get this all stats buff on the beast, but as you can see, even with the all stats buff, he's not really doing that much damage to us. So we're gonna finish him off this phase. Freya's ult is amazing at depleting his health bar. So this will be our final turn. Freya's ult, Miles cards, and this should deplete him completely. And that's it. Floor 3 completed. I hope you found this guide helpful, and thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, you can put them in the comment section. That's all for today.